Hey troops, welcome back to the channel. My name's Ryan, I'm a former commando from the United Kingdom. Today we've got another update for Ukraine. Today's date, 22nd of October, and there's been quite a few developments, especially in the Kherson Oblast region, guys. We've got three main points that we want to get through today. Then we're going to do two map studies at the end, so make sure you stick around for that. Before we get into it, guys, if you don't mind a like, share, and then subscribing to the channel, it really does help me out on here. And if you want to drop a comment for the algorithm, then you're more than welcome to do so, troops. First things first, let's just get into what's going on in the news. So key developments, guys, key developments indeed. So Ukraine war latest. Intelligence says Russia prepares for terrorist attacks in Kherson Oblast in anticipation of Ukraine's speedy advance on the capital city. On the main city in central Kherson Oblast. Okay, there's quite a few things coming out of it, and the antics are really stepping up. And yeah, it's a massive development. So Ukraine has actually amplified its claim about Russia preparing to blow up a major dam holding an enormous reservoir in the Moscow-held part of Kherson Oblast on October 21st. So yesterday, this was information that was received. And the Ukrainian intelligence said that Russian forces had planted explosives at the Kakhovka Dam back in April. So quite a few months ago now. And that is a long-standing plan for Russia to blow the dam up effectively, which is, you know, this stuff belongs in movies. It doesn't belong in real life, but it's a crazy idea, that one that unfortunately looks like it could actually happen. Now, a day earlier, President Zelensky accused Moscow of planning to cause a historical disaster of monumental proportions by blowing up the dam and flooding over 80 settlements. 80 settlements is a... just think about that. 80 villages, 80 settlements along that river. It would be disastrous, again, on a historic level. We would be talking about that for hundreds of years if that were to happen. So hopefully it doesn't, but it's not good for the localized areas within that reservoir where the dam is, guys. Not good at all. Now, the Kakhovka Dam is located on the Dnipro River in the largely occupied Kherson Oblast in the south of Ukraine. As Ukrainian forces steadily advanced towards the region's capital, Kherson, amid the ongoing counteroffensive, Russia is proxified. Russia proxies fled the city, so all of them guys is out of there, okay? And they occupied since early March. Kherson is the only region capital that Moscow managed to capture since the beginning of its full-scale invasion, February 24th. So the fact that this is the only major region that they've been able to capture since that date, in terms of regional capitals, it's a significant defeat if they get the hell out of there. So it seems to me as Russia's, been planning this get out clause for a long time now, in terms of, well, if all else fails, get everyone out and then just blow the dam up, destroy 80 settlements on the way. If we can't have it, you can't have it type mentality. So it's crazy. Now, this week, Russian forces had planted additional explosives at the hydroelectric station adjacent to the dam, according to the intelligence, as they expect Ukraine's speedy liberation of the occupied territory on the west bank of the Dnipro River. So it seems to be in preparation. They're getting ready to do that as a form of, well, you've took over, retaken this land back, but you're not necessarily going to have it back in the way it was, the way it was a few months ago. Russians are preparing a series of terrorist attacks, it is alleged, on the territory, the Defense Ministry Intelligence Directorate has said. So it's escalated into some horrific potential crimes that could take place. Kiev's accusations come as Ukraine reports new achievements in its ongoing counteroffensive in the south. So, if we look at the map in just a few moments, you'll see how successful they have been, and you'll see the strategic reason why Russia will want to blow that dam up and the hydroelectric part to it as well. Deputy Head of President Office Krylo said on October 21st that Ukrainian forces had liberated 88 towns and villages in Kherson Oblast. He added that critical infrastructure is currently being restored in the liberated areas. So they're doing well. The Institute for Study of War, a site that we regularly get our information off, a fantastic site, a US defense think tank said on October 20th that continued Russian preparation for a false flag attack on the dam is likely meant to steer away attention from Moscow's battlefield losses in the south. So, make of that as you wish. They're trying to steer away from that. So they're putting on, a show. This is what we're going to do, so to speak. Now, It's important to understand that Zelensky said in this evening address that Ukrainian forces are showing good results in Kherson Oblast. According to him, the Ukrainian military has seized over 30 Russian armoured vehicles and thousands of munitions in the Oblast in October alone. So they're, before we get into the next part, they are doing exceptionally well within that region, and it is showing. So it seems to me, again, I'll reiterate, like Russia is getting a get out clause for this region if disaster strikes on their behalf. They're not, it's not looking good if they're going to hold the ground. What they anticipate on doing in the retreat, so to speak, is destroying as much as they can on the way out. So it's not just to close the door behind them. They want to throw a few grenades in, so to speak, and cause destruction on the way out, which is bad form if you think about it. It's bad form indeed, and Russia has displayed bad form throughout this whole war, guys. But it can't be denied now that they are making massive gains in the Kherson Oblast region, and that's why they're trying to do this. Okay, it's a spit the dummy out moment for Russia, okay, troops. But let's jump into the next bit of news that I was wanting to talk about. Really important, this. Ukraine calls on the United Nations and the European Union to send a monitoring mission to the Kashova HPP. Ukraine calls on the United Nations, other parts of the European Union and other organisations to organise an international monitoring mission to the Kherson hydroelectric power plant in the occupied part of the Kherson region. We'll jump into the map where it is in just a second. Now, Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal actually said that that's going to happen, so we have to believe that. President Volodymyr Zelensky reported that we are observing the preparation of Russian troops to carry out another terrorist attack on the territory of the Kherson region. It is about the fact that the Russians have mined the dam and units of the HPP. So let's have a look, actually. Let's have a look at where we're talking about. So if we go into this map, because we can see it clear, we go into this region of Kherson, we can see that... So this area there is the Kakova hydroelectric power plant and bridge / that's the area that we're talking about. You can see adjacent to that all of the villages down there, all of the settlements, okay? Massive amount of water here. We're talking about, I think that's about a kilometre or two wide. That's nearly 3 kilometres wide at that entry point of that dam. So a massive amount of water that could basically swill this whole area. Depending on how flat the ground is, it could be absolutely destructive. Okay, troops, it's really, really not good at all. Yeah. And, this terrorist attack can lead to many thousands of victims and the flooding of dozens of settlements, so leading, obviously, potentially, if anyone's there, potentially loads of deaths, okay? That's why and I'm speaking as if Zelensky's saying this, he's saying that he's appealing to the United Nations, European Union and other organisations to organise an international monitoring mission on the HPP. So in that area, international experts should arrive at the station immediately, should already actually be there by now, and they'll be there with Ukrainian personnel, obviously higher military personnel. So that was all spoken about in a meeting yesterday. Hopefully that's already in place. The Ukrainian authorities also call on residents of the occupied territory of the Kherson regions and other regions to immediately leave for the unoccupied territories of the country. Because obviously fearful for their life. It goes without saying, guys. This is there's no games being played here. This is real life, and there's real people being affected in these regions. So if anyone is in these regions, get the hell out of there quick. It's for your safety. It's paramount, because if they've got information to believe that this is going to happen, we have to take it for face value that it actually is going to happen, troops. Okay, sad, but it's true. Now, the final part before we do a bit of a map study is. I want to talk about the drones. We've spoke about this over the past few updates in terms of their use in Ukraine. We've seen that these kamikaze-style drones have been hitting civilian targets and stuff. It's really, really poor, bad form. It's disgusting antics, okay? Now, Washington, October 21st, Reuters, Britain, France and Germany on Friday, so yesterday, called for a United Nations probe of accusations Russia has used Iranian-origin drones to attack Ukraine, allegedly violating a United Nations Security Council resolution. Okay, so they've actually violated something if that's to be true. We've seen that, over the past week or so, these drones have been supplied by Iran. But the question remains, and this was actually asked of me a few days ago, that it's suspected that, Iran might not just be supplying, but they actually might be utilizing them themselves on the ground. We thought that it was, it's escalated from allegedly them training them on the ground for Russia to use them, to them actually utilizing and using those drones specifically themselves, which, if true, could it definitely changes Iran's involvement in the war. This is not good, really. In a letter signed by their United Nations envoys and seen by Reuters, the three backed Ukraine's call on Monday for such a probe. So that's Britain, France, and Germany. Arguing the drone use breached a UN Security Council resolution endorsing the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. So the implications can be further, it can be way past this war. Okay, it could have direct implications with Iran. Now, separately, United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Washington still believes diplomacy was the best way to rein into Iran's nuclear program, but saw no chance in this moment to revive the 2015 deal because of Iran's raising extraneous issues. Okay, with or without a deal, we will continue to take every step necessary to deal with Iran's activities, Iran's aggression, whether it's in the Middle East or beyond, he said at a news conference with French Foreign Minister Catherine Colonna. We are seeing that now, the provisions of drones to Russia. So it's not just the provision of drones, it's how they're being used in the region as well. It's who's training them, who's actually behind the usage of these things. Is it more, are they more involved than we actually thought? That's probably going to come out in this monitoring mission over the next few days as well. Now, Ukraine says Russia has used Iranian-made Shahed 136 attack drones. We can be pretty sure that that is the case now. That cruise towards their ground target and explode on impact. A very different way that drones have been used, especially in Afghanistan. They were mainly for eyes in the sky, UAV types things. Now they're being weaponized, but in a very different way to previous weaponized drones. Now, these things are big bits of kit. We're not just talking about the commercial drones that you or may use on the ground, although that is happening. We're talking about bigger drones being used and just plummeting to the ground in a kamikaze style effect. It's terrible. Now, Tehran actually denies supplying the drones to Moscow. Okay, even though they've been seen. An assertion Washington says is untrue. Okay, and Russia has denied its forces use Iranian drones to attack Ukraine. Lies. We would welcome an investigation by the UN Secretary's team responsible for monitoring the implementation of the UNSCR 2231 that Britain, France, and Germany, a group known as E3, said in the letter. So, it's all going to come out anyway with the monitoring. But, what's it going to prove, even if it does state that Russia have been using it? It doesn't really change anything. We can, assume strongly that they are using those drones. Russia may deny it. Does it really change anything for Russia? Not really, guys, okay? But it's interesting to say the least. But if you've made it this far, thank you. We're going to get into a deep state map. Now, I'm not going to go too deep on this. So, front line in the east, all right, updated today. We can see that there's no real change, and I can assume without looking too deeply that although this front line does seem to be moving slightly, you've got the Russian advances moving slightly towards, the blue buffer, the blue zone that Ukraine has, this area. I don't believe that is as a direct result of, how can I put it, Russia taking back land. I'm only assuming that this line has been revised on what actually they have on both sides, okay? So these lines aren't really changing, although they're changing slightly. I don't think it's through gain or losses, all right? I just think it's because the land that has been taken, the land that has been defended is being slightly revised to be a little bit more accurate. Simple as that. But I'm not going to go too much into that, guys. The front line remains similar, except down here, the media blackout, we can assume that they've been pushing heavily towards Kherson city centre, okay? And the reason I say heavily is because obviously they're pulling their troops out of the region, okay, Russia, and they're obviously doing things with regards to the dam in the Dnipro River. So this area is, although it's not showing it on the map, it's there's a lot going on there, troops, and I can show you on the interactive map why. So the red, obviously Russia controlled. What's happening here? At that area, the Russian army shelled over 20 settlements along the front line. okay? Along the front line, as in this area here, we can see this is all the same. All right, heavy shelling along this front line is taking place. This is only updated 16 hours ago, all right? The odd place is saying something different, that the army shelled these areas, but it's all the same, okay? Now, these blue bits, I'm not too sure what that is. Stabilization measures have been conducted in these regions. I don't know what those stabilization methods are. They all seem to be focused in and around this point. I don't know what that is. I don't think they'd be trying to reintegrate the civilian populace into that area just yet. What's going on here? We've got a nuclear power plant on that front line as well, over the other side. So these are all areas of interest, guys, and alleged areas that could potentially, you don't want that thing going off, do you? With all these bombs going off as well. Yeah, and you see these front lines being heavily bombarded, guys. Now, video of Russian cruise missile reported over today being shot down, so they are having some success.
Бля, пиздец. Ебать! Ебать, блядь! Я хуею! Вот это контент, блядь!
It's been shot down. Other red alerts, aerial alerts mainly. Small arms fired over here. We've seen that, there's bits of fighting, but it's mainly bombardment of artillery rounds and stuff. Okay, guys? So it's, but the thing I wanted to really zoom in on was this area here. It's the hydroelectric power plant and bridge. So this area here, let's quickly go back to the deep state map. We can see it better here. So let's just look at it zoomed in this bit. All right, guys. You see that that's where we're talking. If we want to look a little bit deeper at this map, you can see all of the regions that we're speaking about that could be effective if this thing goes off. Hopefully not. All right, but we've got settlements all the way down here. Now, I don't know how flat this land is, but it does make a big difference. Okay, we've got effectively at this wide choke point here, something that's 2-3 kilometers wide with all that water backed up. If this land is quite low, then all of these areas would be affected. It looks like there's farmland in and around here, so I surmise that this land isn't too, the terrain isn't too hilly. Okay, and if that is the case, all of these areas would be effective if that area were to go, if that dam was to be affected, which is something that we just don't need. We don't want to update on things like that. It's not going to look good for anyone, troops, but I pray that it doesn't happen and that dam remains in place, just for the sake of all of these people who are still living there, because there is people still in and around these areas, okay? Lives would be lost if that was to take place, but I would like to think that evacuation procedures would, although under the circumstances, would be really hard. Hopefully, as many people can get out as possible, okay? But that's the update on that one, troops. If you're still here, then I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you guys for supporting the channel. And yeah, if I'm on Rumble, link is in the description. If you want to support me by Patreon, then link is in the description as well. Please support me on Patreon. It really helps out, especially with the way, the world is at this moment in time. And last but not least, and the most important thing, I am going to be doing a charity event. I'm going to be climbing the 3 highest peaks in England, Scotland and Wales within a 24-hour period, with a guy who is a very close friend of mine. His story is he's a single parent of quite a few kids now, okay, and he's got 4 beautiful girls, and he's lost his wife a few months ago. He lost his partner, so he's a single dad now, and he's chosen to do this for this challenge for charity to raise money for impoverished children who are not going to have presents on Christmas Day, and for a local charity. It's a soup kitchen basically who feed homeless individuals and provide food for people who can't afford food. So we're raising money for that cause, guys. If you want to donate to that cause, please check the link in the description. That would be much obliged, very much appreciated. But other than that, guys, if you like these updates, drop a comment for the algorithm, smash that like button, subscribe if you're brand new here, and wherever you are in the world, make sure you stay safe, troops. Okay? Peace.